breaking the ice because I was starting to have the same concerns on my end.
Someone may say something interesting. You never know.
Started. We'll call meeting to order. First thing on the agenda is to approve the minutes of August 11th. Do I have a motion?
Batman, I move.
Nightingale second.
Batman and Nightingale. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Before we get into the regular agenda, I'm going to tell you we're polling JP4. And if the committee would like to have a executive session afterwards, discuss it, we can. Other than that, we'll move right into Ms. Spingler with 911.
Good evening. I do not have any resolutions. Just a couple of things to highlight on my report. I'm happy to say our 911 database analyst finally started. He started yesterday, and he's been busy. We are going through some grueling training between discovery and the GIS work. He's been working 2-hour increments a day with Nicholas to catch up on all of the GIS work, and then also working on learning Spillman. Today, we had him sit out on the floor for a little while to start to learn a little bit about dispatch. Really, that's just for him to get a high level of what the dispatchers do so that when he's listening to recordings, he knows what he's looking for and what to expect. He's going to meet the GIS employees down here. For 2 weeks, we have a meeting set up for him to kind of build pick their brains to see what they do and kind of get a bigger picture of accounting GIS and the expectations. There are some things that were uploaded onto some of the employees down here when Nick left. So the hope is that if there are things that they're overwhelmed with, that they can pass them back to Brian, and he will we'll start managing those. Grants, we still haven't heard anything new on the seat grants. I don't know what is going on with those. I do have a coordinator conference coming up the end of the month. And that's our opportunity to talk with our state reps because they're always there. So hopefully we'll get some more information at the end of the month on our grant and where we are with the 2020 as well as the 2021 seat grants. Communication system, Rich, I'm throwing you under the bus on this one. Cato, the town of Cato has asked that we remove the old Cato Tower. There's probably no need to that tower, and there is no operational need for it. It's probably going to cost more to remove it than it is for what it's worth. So my suggestion to Rich was, let's take a look at vendors who dismantle them and offer for them to do it at no cost and tell them to keep whatever scrap there is just to get rid of it and get it off the county's hands. So, like I said, Rich is working through all the legal.
Yeah, that sounds fine to me. You know, you can do an RFP if you like, or whatever, to bring something back to the board.
Yeah, get rid of it and be done with that. You'll see on here, I highlighted a new position, and I'm still trying to work through this really to come up with the best avenue. But we seem to take 1 step forward, 2 steps back every time we get staff. We were fully staffed for a short period, and then we had 2 go out on medical leave, and we had 1 resignation, so now we're short 3 again. And it always seems to happen around summertime, and my 4 employees are buried in overtime. So I started to look at the trends of what we ended up with at the end of the year for our salary line, because we always have extra monies left in the salary line. But the opposite of that is that we're always over at our overtime budget. So just over the course of the last 4 years, I looked at the trends, and we probably have around 50 to 60,000 left at the end of the year, which would easily absorb another position. And even doing that, we probably still will come in under budget in the salary line. It'll help in the overtime aspect, and it'll help with staff burnout because they really do get mandated far more than they should. We have 1 hopefully coming back October 1st, another hopefully coming back January 1st, but then I got another one going out February. So we just can't win, and they can't we can't manage these constant vacancies. Because essentially somebody has to be in that seat. So when we end up with the open shifts, it just turns into overtime. So I think the best avenue for us is to add another position and try to help offset some of that. I really, quite honestly, don't think it's gonna have a big financial impact on our budget at all, because it's inevitable. If I look at the trends over the last 15 years, we are not ever full staff for any more than 3 or 4 months at a time. And that's honestly, that's nationwide. It's a tough job. It's little reward, and there's not a lot of people that really are competent in that position. So when you find good people, you need to take care of them, and it's hard because, our way of taking care of them is going, here's some more overtime to earn some more money. And, if they're doing it on their own time and they want to do it, that's one thing, but when we're mandating it, it's tough.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Keith.
I mean, I guess you would have, it would have an impact on your budget, because you have to budget and tax for it. I mean,
Yes,
whether or
correct.
not you don't get as much back. Would you be looking at a reduction in your overtime when you submit 2022 budget?
Yeah, my goal is it will significantly reduce overtime. The trouble is, now, not only do I have 2 out sick, I also have 1 person out on COVID. So for the last 2.5 weeks, we've been down 4 people.
This is the crazier part of my question. There's no capacity working with other counties to contract with them to have people come in during those periods of medical leaves or.
No, because honestly, the tough part is, 1, if you go to any center near us, everybody's understaffed. Everybody is short staffed. 2, we all use different systems. As a consortium, we've tried to do better about building out systems that are compatible with one another so that we can do some of that. But the tough part is nobody can afford to lose staff. I think I was talking to the director from Oswego a month or 2 ago. He had 1 person on his list, 1 dispatcher to choose from. It's crazy. I go back, 10 years on the list. We get, between 80 and 90 people taking the test. We're lucky to have a list of 13 or 14 at this point.
They can't pass it or they don't.
They don't know what it takes it. Nobody takes it.
Mr. Batman.
Yeah, I would just, I have two comments. The one is a request, and that is we look at the old Cato Tower, before we look at removal, let's make certain that there's no one who has any use for that. I suspect that's already been done, but if it hasn't, let's aggressively see if we can get someone to look at that. But the other thing is I applaud Denise for looking at this idea of overtime versus another position. I think that is absolutely something that if it looks to her like it's going to work, she should bring forth for the 2022 budget. And I think that's exactly what she's saying here, to get those numbers together and look at to see if it makes more sense to have a full-time position, an additional full-time position that is not always needed, but that will cover for overtime. I think that's an interesting idea, and we absolutely ought to pursue it. And that's of course a budgetary issue. So good. Let's move forward with that to look at it during the 2022 budget process. Thank you.
Mr. Strong.
Denise, is there any need for part-time dispatch?
There are, Mark, we have a couple of part-timers, and they're valuable for sure.
Yeah.
The tough part is they have to be on the list, and it's tough to get people off the list to want to be. Because essentially, when they train, you almost have to train full-time. So you're saying, hey, quit your job, come train with us full-time, and then we're gonna just give you part-time. Yeah, so that's a tough part of it. And I've kind of been I've been going back looking at big events. Probably, obviously, the biggest one we've had was that 2-way incident. And I hate to use the word lucky,
Yeah, we were.
but we were lucky.
Yep.
We happened to that day have had somebody who picked up overtime, who we normally would have only been able to staff for that day because of our availability of staff. Somebody actually happened to have picked up overtime and we had 5 on. If we didn't have 5 on, I'm scared to think of how that center would have operated.
You lucked out with the 2 were
It was, I mean, I cannot tell you what a phenomenal job they did, and I've been remiss in actually bringing that up. I actually gave them all letters of commendation, recognition. Boy, did they do a phenomenal job. I mean, I really cannot say enough good about that staff. And we really were lucky because that additional person had picked up overtime on that, in that vacant spot. And it was a fire dispatcher, so that poor fire dispatcher would have been buried.
Mr. Lattimore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that we've got EMO on the line, Mr. Courier. If there was a nuclear accident in Oswego, everybody would have to draw back 50 miles, I believe, from the plow or whatever. Who would fill in?
If I may, the emergency planning zone is 10 miles. The 50 mile, which would encompass a lot of Cayuga County, the same if they had a problem at the Gannett plant in Wayne, is only for a radioactive release that would impact the ingestion pathway. So as far as evacuation or immediate danger, it's a 10-mile radius of the plants.
All right, so let's say 10 miles. So who would be wiped out? Who would back up?
They're not only centers more than 10 miles from that.
Well, actually, their 911 center is not more than 10 miles. It is within the 10-mile zone. Why they built it that way, I don't know. But so I don't know who their backup would be, other than they do have a backup center 911 that is outside the 10-mile circle. It's in Fulton.
All right, let's let him finish his question, then we'll have.
Well, the question is personnel. And if for some reason there wasn't some kind of big accident, we've got to have some kind of contingent plan to, all of a sudden the bus rolls over and for some reason we don't have staffing on board. There's got to be center to pick that up,
So
that traffic.
Oswego's a good example because we have the same phone system and we have a common CAD system. So their 911 is outside of the hot zone for an incident like that. So we could perhaps have their calls pushed to us or vice versa. For us, we also have our backup sites. We could potentially, yes, correct. We could bring in for both sites. Worst case scenario, we push our calls to Sutter County. We have contingent plans for things like that.
Okay, and the senator was there and he'd like to wire up more cable. And if we had those direct cables to the different 911 sites, it would help us alleviate some pressure if one got knocked out. Is that correct?
Correct. And we also do have microwave links that connect the centers, that connect all of our tower sites.
Like,
How do cables replace people?
well, I mean, if we had to, we could go down.
Who else had a question? All right. Denise, you go. And next is Mr. Tatsus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I submitted a report, the August report from the St. Council program. If there's any questions or concerns, I'll address those. If not, it's pretty cut and dry. Talk about the centralized arraignment program, the CAFA program at Auburn City Court, and the Council of First program in justice courts. Our August payments for legal and professional services at just over $80,000. And we're working on our third year of the Royal Herring grant, which we were first awarded 2 years ago for $1 million. I do have two concerns I'll bring up tonight, and Denise touched on one of those, is the lack of, we're running out of attorneys here in Cayuga County for public defense services. One is we have an aging attorney pool. Many of them are going on to retirement. Two is that they're going on for better paying jobs. And the third issue is the rate of pay that they're getting paid. They've been being paid $60 an hour for misdemeanors, $75 for felonies for at least the last 20 years. The state legislature needs to look at raising the rates. The biggest problem we're having is in family court. The amount of petitions coming in, visitation, and we're running out of attorneys. So myself and the family court, chief family court, reached out to Monroe County, and we have secured, it looks like probably 4 to 6 attorneys that will help us short term, hopefully till December, January, with family court assignments. So you may see some names that you don't recognize. I don't know these people either. My colleague from the Monroe County State Council Office has recommended these 4 or 6 attorneys in family court. The second thing I'll bring up is I'm also helping Tracy Colson with the DW, still with the DWI program. We're just seeing the results now of revenues not coming in because of last year's peak in the COVID. So our revenues are extremely diminished. So we're looking at a 2022 budget, which we're proposing probably 30 to 35% cut in allocations that we give to in advertising, in the sheriff's office, DA's office, and the probation office, because we don't have that fine money coming back to the county because the arrests weren't made or people in court haven't paid their fines. So I'm working with Lynn at the budget office and see how we can offset those cuts. And hopefully we'll get through it. Every year we put away, we squirrel away, we try to squirrel away 30 to 40,000 in revenues, and we've got a budget surplus of $200,000, $250,000, but we've had to we went over budget last year by 70 some. This year we're going to go over budget by 70 some, so we're chipping away at that surplus. So I'm going to recommend some cuts unless Lynn can come up with some alternatives to those cuts. And we talked a little bit about using the American Rescue Plan money and some other alternatives. So just a heads up on that. These are all 100% monies that we get from fine revenue when you pay your fine for DWI.
Does a portion of that come to the program, Lloyd, or all of it?
Almost all of it does.
So any fine that's paid related to that kind of charge is put into this,
Dedicated.
okay, and that's been the way forever?
Yeah.
Okay, and the hourly rates that you pay the attorneys, you have no discretion on, or state set?
We have no discretion.
And the family court rates are the same as the other rates,
$75, correct?
60 or 70? Or-
Just 75 flat.
Oh, family
for
court's a
family
little
court.
different, 75.
Yeah.
And you have less attorneys.
Yes, we have quite a few less attorneys in family court and many more cases.
Any other questions for Mr. Hoskins?
Yeah, actually, Mr. Chair, I have a question or a comment.
Ben, let me see your hand.
So,
Go ahead, Keith.
yeah, if I may, it concerns me a little bit that we would be looking at the recovery funds, to plug an operational budget hole. This is what the county did, as I understand it, with the tobacco revenue. We used that, just for operations, and it was gone. And when it was gone, then we were faced with a huge budget deficit. The solution this sounds like a real problem, Lloyd, and I don't know what we're gonna do. I don't have a solution. But what I do suggest is the solution is not to take these one-time funds and begin to plug our budget holes. I don't care what the department is. We have to be careful about that. So that's my caution. Let's make sure we don't use that money for those purposes. That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Lang, got a question?
The. The number of cases during this next pandemic shutdown or whatever, everybody's gonna be zooming and do we get more cases resolved? Or do we have to be in Florida, where I just was over the weekend, they said that they have to be present for certain types of cases in the courtroom.
We're still doing some family court by Zoom. A lot of the first and second, third appearances are all done by Zoom. We have, that's the only thing that we're doing by Zoom right now. It's some family court. The rest is still in person. It's for family court.
Convenience, it's a convenience issue.
Yeah, the volume.
Any other
Thank you.
questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See Dr. Duckett on the line. I guess next would be Mr. Lewis.
Hello, everyone. We have one resolution on it to accept a grant for the crime victim witness coordinator position we've had for 25 years. It's a position that was funded by the grant required the office to function personnel. Our operations are asking the president to grant a program.
Have a motion for JP1?
A motion.
A second.
Lattimore and Ms. Daly, any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Other than that, well, just an update, we have the homicide trial starting on Monday the 13th to the 4 defendants in November 2019. Homicide over behind U-Haul in West End down here. Starting, we get some 70-something witnesses, 100 exhibits. 3 defense attorneys, 2 prosecutors, a judge, and about 4 weeks coming up. Other than that, we're still triple booked a lot of the trial dates, trying to get things moving through. Quite along. We have had some more discussions with some of the legislators about non-bargaining positions and salary and so on, but at some point, some discussion about trying to get something going on, fixing what's going on. Other than that, unless there are any questions on
Any questions from the committee? Yeah. Without, thank you.
Thank you.
Dale, you're on the line. I think you're up next.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time. I believe our report is pretty self-explanatory, but I will offer some updated items on a number of these pieces. The first is the EMS training. As noted, we only have 7 students, which is significantly fewer than we anticipated because we know during COVID, a lot of people's certifications went into a 1-year extension, which is now run out. And I got a call today from someone who theirs ran out. They were looking for a refresher. So the EMS shortage continues, not only locally, but statewide and nationally. It is a topic for one of the presentations next week at the NISAC conference. So if any of you are attending, that might be a good item to sit in on if you're available, because we're going to continue to see more shortages. The times ambulances are held up at the hospitals is getting longer and fewer assets. So it's making it more of a challenge in the community. Under planning, as noted, we're reaching out to all the municipalities who participated in the hazard mitigation plan revision. Two towns, Summerhill and Senate, opted to not participate. All of the other towns did. Our outreach to them to get this adopted has slowed a little bit, as currently I'm the only person in emergency management. The other two are out on COVID quarantine until around the middle of the month. So we're a little slowed down on reaching out to the towns right now. Operations wise, as Denise said, we dodged some major bullets with the bus accident. 911 did a really, really good job, as did local fire departments, EMS agencies. Onondaga, Seneca County, Seneca in particular, sent a ton of EMS resources that helped move all the patients that we needed to. Some went by bus to ACH, but overall, to have that type of an incident with no fatalities was absolutely amazing, and we're all very, very fortunate. A lot of folks came together to make that come together. We did hold a after action conference the other evening. Let's see, I guess it was last Thursday evening, and we had 15 participants from state police, different fire departments, some EMS agencies in Onondaga, Cayuga, and Seneca counties. Overall, everybody thought that the response for something that they don't get to do, fortunately, a whole lot, went very, very well. We do have some things to work on, and some of those activities have already begun. So kudos to everyone who was involved. On page 2, item D, Tropical Storm Fred. Obviously, everybody is aware of how much rain we got in a 2-day period. There was some significant damage to residences, businesses, public properties, etc. The state Homeland Security folks actually came to town today to do some on-site inspections of county highways where we had significant damage. They went to town of Moravia and then out to Union Springs. Union Springs appears to be probably the largest area of damage. The state did hit their $30 million minimum threshold quite easily, thanks to Steuben County and Oneida counties. So we're working towards hitting our county threshold, which is $311,301. If the numbers we have right now are solid, we're well over 900,000. When FEMA looks at them, they always try to cut them about in half. So the state will be putting in a request to the president for a FEMA declaration, which hopefully will bring significant money for the county and some of the towns. Those are the main items. So I'll leave that. If there's anything I can add or clarify, please let me know.
Dale, I have a question regarding the bus accident. I appreciate you gave me a call when you found out. It was a little bit later in the day because, you couldn't get a hold of other people, but did you guys talk about that in your aftermath meeting? I don't know how soon you got notified, and did everything go appropriate there, or was there some issues that need to be resolved if and when the next time happens?
We didn't talk specifically about that. Part of the issue is the mass casualty incident plan, which this would fall into that category, is very old. Most people at the meeting, and many who've been around a long time, haven't seen anything of it in, their words, over 15 years. When I looked at it during the winter, it's very outdated. So we do have a significant amount of work to rebuild or start anew with a mass casualty incident plan. As far as notifications, we did identify some hiccups, but with any incident like that, whether it's our department, whether it's the local fire chief, whomever might be called to respond, it's unreasonable to think that everyone will always be instantly notified or available to respond. So, that's the importance of, one, having backups, two, the importance of agencies working, training together, because everybody has to come together and you get who you get. That said, the fact that it was midday on a Saturday was certainly to our advantage. If that happened at 2:00 on a sunny Tuesday afternoon, that would have been an entirely different picture as far as who was available in numbers and of resources and where they would be coming from. So much in a response like that is situation and time dependent.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from Mr. Lattimore?
Coming from Oswego, you realize that, well, even one thing on the docket tonight is the tower, and you heard Denise say that we use microwave, and the technologies keep changing, but we have similar hardware in both Oswego and in the Cayuga County. A hard wire between Oswego and Cayuga County would help. I know that the Senator Schumer was here the other day talking about getting rural broadband. If we wired up Oswego, Cayuga, and Onondaga, would that help with the communications? And do we need?
Well, anything would help, but it would not address timeliness of when any particular individual gets informed about any type of incident.
Any other questions for Mr. Furrier? Thank you. Next on the agenda is Jay Westbelier. Jay is on the call.
Yes,
I'm sorry, may I add one more brief comment?
Yes, go ahead, Dale.
In response to the question about hardwiring the counties together, and the earlier example of the nuclear plant having an issue, I think it's important to understand that, yes, anytime we can build in a contingency, whether it's hardwiring, duplication of equipment, those types of things, it's really critical. And I'll bring to mind the 1998 ice storm in northern New York. Took down pretty much all of the communications towers for a few days. So it doesn't take, the nuclear disaster, if you will, that was presented earlier to create a significant need for that backup. Large ice storms, large snowstorms. We're getting more severe windstorms with tornadoes, derechos that tear down towers, et cetera. So I would strongly support anything we could do to increase our contingency and our backup in any of our communication systems.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dale. Jay, you're up.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Short report this month, no pending resolutions. The good news is just this afternoon, we offered our vacant senior typist position. Hopefully have a start date nailed down for that tomorrow. So that will be of big help to the department. Other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Ms. Daly?
Jay, I was just curious, you don't have to go into a long description, but you're noting that you're having these ATI meetings and appreciate you getting all that back up. But the primary responsibility of that group is to look at these alternatives to incarceration programs. Is that really what requirement to meet is?
Yes, it's our obligation to review the programs that we have available as alternatives to incarceration, and we are required to meet quarterly.
You're looking at these contracts now, their performance, and kind of doing the oversight.
Yes, that's correct.
Any other questions? Any? Thank you, Jay. Yeah, we'll move on to the sheriff.
Good evening. Just a couple of quick updates to my updates that I highlighted on my report. COVID in the jail, unfortunately, as I mentioned, we had a few inmates that tested positive, so we did have to reopen our isolation pod. We had one of our pods actually closed, and which helps us with staffing. We don't have to man that particular post when we close an area, so we had that closed, but unfortunately, we had to reopen that isolation pod. Inmates that tested positive have since to move to other parts of the facility to come off their isolation. However, we had to take another inmate that will be coming into the facility, so that there's another 2 weeks. And it's created some challenges in that we had one of the inmates had to go to the hospital for a few days due to some breathing issues. Fortunately, he's back out, but it creates some challenges with staffing. We have to have, obviously, have staff, 2 members of the hospital and inmate anytime that they're admitted. So it's been challenging. Along with the staff, we've got a few staff members that are out due to COVID issues, so that's created some challenges as well. The only other update I have regarding listed in my report, they lift the no wake advisory as water levels have started to come back to seasonal normals on our lakes and waterways. So after writing the report, that was lifted. But other than that, I don't have any other updates. Happy to answer questions, and do 3 resolutions after JP4 has been pulled.
Any questions before we do the resolutions? Otherwise, I'd look for a motion to bundle JP 2, 3, and 5.
Move it.
Mr. Patcher, moved it.
Second,
Seconded by Ms. Nightingale. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carried. It would be up to the committee if you want to go into executive session, have a little discussion on JP4. I will say that there won't be any action taken after executive session if we do that. Somebody want to make a motion, or do we just want to? Nobody wants to go into executive session? Okay.
Could you read the motion, please?
Well, the motion was to establish salaries for Cayuga County custody jail nursing staff. What?
That's the resolution.
The resolution is involving the salaries for the nursing staff at the jail.
Okay.
Okay. So if there's no need for executive session, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Didio. Seconded by.
Batman, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
joyous times.
I'll touch base.
I can't, I don't sit on the thing, I can't move or. Sorry. 5:30, according to the rules.
Yeah, 'cause it needs-